y'all, what's up? This is Lynda Carmouche with the Elephant Room podcast. And tonight we are back for our final episode in our first season. And guess what? We have somebody back by popular demand. And that is, I'm not going to delay it. We came on early because he was like, let's go on and get with it. And it's Dr. Holt. Y'all give it up for Dr. Holt. He is back in the elephant room. Welcome,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah,
Holt.
yeah, 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 yeah. Let's get it.
What is it you said last time when you came on and we just fell out?
I don't know. What did I
What
say?
what he do or something like that? I don't
Oh,
remember.
what up, though? That's yeah.
That's
That's
what it
Michigan.
was.
That's that's Detroit and Flint right there.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So, what have you been up to since the last time you were here in August? Because I've been seeing all kinds of stuff on social media that you're doing.
Oh man. My body's a little tired. I've been doing a lot of travel, back to back. Just out there supporting school districts who are really struggling with kids and with academics and behavior. And been in DC and Baltimore area. Yeah, I got a contract with Baltimore City Public Schools doing the same thing, training their crisis team on trauma and being more responsive as a responsive team out there. Then in the DC area, I think I said it in your on your show the last time I was here, is pushing that based on my research that trauma is a matter of public health now. So now I'm, talking with members of Congress and things of that nature to push trauma as a policy, and for our government to spend the dollars that's needed to trauma affected communities, especially with homelessness and poverty and addictions and fentanyl, opioid, violence, public safety. All of those issues are root causes to trauma. So, trauma is the new public health emergency for our country, and most definitely, we have to do something about that.
That's good stuff. I want to ask you because I too sometimes go to school districts and work with
Yeah.
educators and leaders on trauma, but I want you to make it plain for the audience, for those people that might have children that are in public educational systems or teachers or leaders. How
Yeah.
does trauma in education intersect?
Yeah. The, to nicely put it is, with rigorous instruction and pedagogy and curriculum instruction, things of that nature, and standardized testing, we have high expectations for students to perform academically, to perform in their core classes and things of that nature. But what we fail to realize is that trauma is not a behavior issue. Trauma is a brain functional issue. And so the more that we have kids who have limited brain functions in their frontal lobe to actually be able to process algebra and to process language arts and process their different classes, they are going to struggle academically because trauma is hijacking that prefrontal cortex that's limiting the brain from processing algebra. So this is not kids are not learning because they're dumb or stupid or ignorant. They're just learning because the trauma hijacks the different regions of the brain that limits them from actual learning. So tutoring programs would not fix that, right? So they can go through so many tutoring programs, but we didn't deal with the root cause, and that's the hijacking the brain because of trauma. So it's impacting the cortex of the brain that processes information, and the way brain is being healthy when it functions, and when it's limited, you have limitations with kids learning in class. And then the second thing I'd say is that it also impacts emotional regulation. So kids who are dysregulated are the ones who are fighting, are the ones who are aggressive, who are the ones that's being defiant. Those are the ones that can't sit still, that just got to be getting into things. Is because of emotional regulation. So really, we don't have bad kids. Trauma is what create bad things that happen to kids, and they have bad behavior and bad decision making.
So, a lot of what we're hearing when we hear that the kid is not sitting in the seat, so they must have ADHD. is not. I'm gonna go ahead and open that
Yeah,
can of
yeah,
worms for
yeah,
you because we have
yeah,
some educators that are saying to parents, you need to go ahead and take them and get some medicine. And you and I both know that if you're medicating ADHD, but the real root issue is trauma,
yeah.
you're not going to get the results you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and not just educators, we also have school psychologists. We also have doctors that miss it. We also have pediatricians that miss it. And so that's very, very crucial. So the thing about trauma is trauma can also mask symptoms that can look like another disorder. Okay. And so because it's a brain functional issue, if you cannot regulate emotionally, then you're going to probably have a difficult time sitting still, right? So, from one perspective of looking at the DSM, however we want to diagnose, we can miss it by labeling kids to be autistic. We can label kids being ADD. We can label kids as being ADHD. But when trauma hits the brain, most definitely you're triggered in all kind of different ways. So it's difficult for you to sit still. And movement sometimes is a certain way people cope with their trauma. But if we misdiagnose it as some type of disorder when it's just really I gotta move because sitting still really triggers me. So I just gotta have some movement going on. We can miss kids, and so that's why I will always say, do a trauma assessment first and go through even an ACE score, whatever you need to do, so we can figure out if there's some deeper root causes going on with that child before we go and label them, and then we mismedicate them as well. Because if we diagnose wrong, then we more likely are mismedicating kids.
And let's talk about that kid that grows up
Yes.
and they've been missed all this time, whether it was their primary care physician, their psychiatrist, whoever. um,
Yeah.
because sometimes we know that healthcare professionals take the history and allow the history to dictate the right now. What does that look like in an adult who has still not had their trauma processed and they're still dealing
Um,
with it?
yeah. So Frederick Douglass said it is far easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Um, and a lot of our psychiatric issues, mental health issues, behavioral health issues, or just physical health issues, a lot of times come from unresolved trauma when we were children. So here we are now, 42, 51, 63, and we're still struggling with what happened to me when I was 9 years old. And so we have to go back and deal with those childhood traumas, so that we can have better outcomes and be better versions of ourselves as we're getting older in life, because most definitely trauma impacts the whole person. So it impacts your neurology, impacts your psychology, impacts your physiology, impacts your spirituality and your biology, which means that if we don't catch traumas in certain generations, we pass those traumas on through our genes into our DNA, which is a biological ramification of us not healing from our trauma. So it is very, very important. Some of us are dealing with great great granddaddy's demons and disorders, because it's been passed on to us because great great granddaddy didn't know about therapy and didn't know about going to a doctor, and most definitely didn't have the accessibility and affordability. So if the most our great grandparents had was church, to help them cope and deal with many of their traumas, but we needed more than just the spiritual aspects of our hurts and pains. We need that holistic approach of, yes, I need church. Yes, I need Bible study. Yes, I need prayer and fasting. Yes, I need a good word on Sunday. But at the same time, I still need to take my medication, or I need to be utilizing meditation,
Yes.
mindfulness. All of those different things is very important to bring healing to ourselves. And so that's very, very important. As we, when I look at it, the closest that many Black Americans got to psychology and psychotherapy was if they had a great pastor who can articulate scripture and make it in such a way that it impacted your psychological and your emotional aspect. Like T.D. Jakes is a non-psychologist kind of a pastor. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just what he is. He can articulate in such a way that, not being licensed and credentialed as a healthcare behavioral health professional, he can articulate the word, and many others that's out there,
Hmm.
to hit home with people that's going through a lot of mental trouble and traumas. And so that's kind of like what I'm talking about. Pastors back in there was probably the closest Black Americans can get to some level of therapy, because they would get it from the pulpit, because they just didn't have the knowledge of going to see doctors and seeing therapists to help and take it to the next level.
That's good. Oh, it's so much to unpack. One of the
Yeah.
things you talked about was you didn't call it this, but I'm going to call it this because it aligns with a chapter in my book. The legacy of I called it the legacy of polished pain. You said we're carrying trauma from generations.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the legacy of polished pain in my new book, I talk a lot about how some of the things we're doing today, we got it from grandmama's grandmama,
Hmm.
but it has taught us to polish the hurt and the pain, whether it's a trauma or not. It's pain.
Hmm.
So let's
Yeah.
let's just stay with a basic pain.
Yeah.
And one of the
Yeah.
things that stick out is the church. You brought
Mm.
it up, so I'm gonna go on and go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Help us,
The
Lord.
church, when you think about the church and how we have been taught to
Mhm.
polish pain, what comes to
Mhm.
mind?
One, I think when we talk about, polishing pain is, we just push ourselves raggedy, like we don't get breaks, and we say that's strength. Don't let what you've been through stop you. And so we just push and push and push until mentally and physically we just implode. Yeah, I think what I said in your last show, which is very in alignment with your chapter, was trauma polishing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we try to polish our traumas, never deal with the root causes of it, but we clean it up. We make it look good, on the outside, on the exterior. The exterior looks, really pristine and like it really have it together. For example, I've been through a lot of trauma, but now, I got my credit together. I'm making a little money now. I'm making six figures, so I can move out of my old zip code, move into another new zip code. Got a beautiful home. People see I look successful, so I'm polishing my trauma. Never dealt with myself, but I changed my zip code. I changed how I'm living, making some dollars now. Got food in the refrigerator, coming from a space where only time you have food was on food stamps and welfare. We just call it out,
Yes,
right?
yes, got
Um,
extra now.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So I got myself together in certain ways, but when people still interact with you, you start bleeding out on people, right?
Yes,
You still
for
bleed
sure.
out on people, which says that, okay, though you have a few letters behind your name, and though you have changed your zip code, you're living better, you're looking better, you're driving better, but you're still broken, and you can still be broken and tore from the flow up with more money. Matter of fact, that's even dangerous because a traumatized person with more resources can victimize more people versus you
Yes,
being broke, right?
yes,
So really money don't change you. Money just expose who you always really were. So that's very important. So to go back, also talking about outside of trauma polishing is, talking about being in church is, we just made everything just super spiritual, and we didn't really understand there's some evidence-based science out here that are saying that if somebody's going through a psychosis, that's not always demonic.
yes.
There's just, some brain circuitry and imbalances in chemistry in the brain that sometimes happens through trauma, sometimes happen through genetics, whatever
And we
that
need to
looks
do
like.
more than pray for them.
and we have to do more than pray for them, right? So it's, again, I was saying, still you need to go see a doctor. Even when you go to a prayer meeting or go to church, you still need to see a therapist. Not just see a therapist, but continue the process. Because I think what happens is a lot of people start the work and they start seeing the little improvements, and they were like, they
They're gone.
ghost you. Like, I'm good. I don't
Gone.
need to come back no more. You only had 2 sessions. What we talking about here? Two. Go
They're
to your therapist right
gone.
now.
They're gone. I'm going to come back to the church conversation because we got some comments in the chat, but I want to talk about this 2 sessions and they're gone. One of the
Yeah.
things I mentioned in the book is oftentimes people used to ask me as a therapist, so how many sessions will it take for me to finish this? And
Hmm.
I say, I'm a therapist, not Jesus. It has taken you decades to
Right.
get to
Right.
this point, and now you want a quick fix, and quick fixes don't work.
It
That's why
doesn't
you
work.
have to keep going. You have to keep,
That's true.
because healing is really a process.
It is. It
It's
is.
not something that we get and then we're done with it. So, going
Right.
back to this church issue, one of the listeners says, I don't look like what I've been through. And I think a part of the pain polishing in the church is we have learned what we should say to show up well.
Yeah.
When you ask somebody on Sunday morning, how are you doing? What do they say, Doc?
Oh, praise the Lord. I'm blessed and I ain't taking nobody, no devil's mess. But they were just crying in the church parking lot before they came in the sanctuary.
In the chat box, what do you say? Sometimes they say blessed
Blessed. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
highly favored,
Highly favored. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but
And
we've been
really, they're saying I'm mess and I'm pissed off as hell.
because inside you are so broken, and
Yeah.
we have to stop because that's just polishing. That's
Yeah.
polishing. That's
And yeah, and
polishing.
going back to the statement you're saying, I don't look like what I've been through. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do look
Yes.
like what you've
Yes.
been through. And guess what? That's okay
Yes.
because that tells me where we need to start. So I
Yes.
know we got these church jargons and these type of churchy cliches and things of that nature, but that's not always because we're not going to fake it till we make it. We're not going to, sometimes you do look like what you've been through, and you should look like what you've been through because when we look at what you've been through, man, you know, you should look like it. And then you don't know where to start your healing process if we just faking a funk. We just saying things that just sound cute, and sound inspirational. But that's not always the case. It's okay to be toe up from the floor. It's okay to be like, I've been through the ringer when it comes to life. But the good thing is, number one, it's okay to not to be okay. So just allow yourself to process that day, that moment, that hour. That doesn't mean you weak. It doesn't mean you're a punk. It doesn't mean that you're not a person of faith. Matter of fact, faith, how I look at when we talk about faith is faith never promises uh, the for things to be easy, but it does promises for all things to be possible. So it's really not, if you're going through hardship, it's not because you have a lack of faith. It's really the faith that you have that gets you through the worst seasons of your life, and it's okay. So yeah, if you do look like what you've been through, okay, that's fine because everybody enjoys a before and an after picture. This is how you look like at the beginning,
Come on.
right? In your season, but with the right journey of healing, with the right doctor, right therapy, right pastor, right life coach, and let me put life coach in there too because I think we sleep on the importance of coaching. After you get counseling, counseling deals with your deficits, deal with the issues, the problems, and all of that. But once we began to turn that ocean liner around and shift your trajectories, now not only do you need counseling, but you need coaching that sends you that start dealing with your purpose and start dealing with your short and long term goals. So a lot of times people need coaching, counseling as well as coaching.
And many times people want to make a choice. Am I going
Yeah,
to do one or the other when they all, it's just like with prayer. People say, oh
yeah.
no, you don't need to go to therapy. You can pray about it. You
No, you
don't
need.
have to choose one or the other.
That's right. That's
We
right.
can have all of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a buffet affair.
Yeah,
It's the
we can
golden
have all.
corral of medicine. You need it all. You just don't just deal with salads, and you got all this other good food out there, right? So it's a buffet of specialties where you can always benefit from. So yeah, I'm a true believer in the power of prayer. One, because I practice it myself, but two, I understand that you might be so moody that you get on everybody's last nerve, and you just came from prayer, but you didn't realize because you're a man over 40, you got low testosterone issues. And people with low testosterone issues have a difficult time emotionally regulating. So while you go into prayer, you might need a few shots of some testosterone to get you from 150 up to that around 800, 900 score bracket, to get you to feeling good and feeling back to yourself again, and getting that stamina back and getting your energy back, and just being emotionally regulated. So I know I just spoke into a space, but
I
we
wasn't
talk
ready
about
for that one, Doc. You took that was a curveball.
yeah, yeah,
All the men in
yeah.
the room, I need you to hear this.
Yeah, yeah, Willie, you crazy, bruh, because your testosterone is too low. Go to your doctor, go to your male clinic, your urologist, whatever that is, and work on you. No, I'm serious. You
Yes,
know, yeah. I mean,
that's
something
good
simple
stuff.
like that, because some stuff is hormonal balance, men and women. You too estrogen dominant. You got too much estrogen and not enough balance. So that makes a woman extremely emotional, right? So when we're looking into these things, when I'm talking about more than just church, more than prayer, yeah, when we start looking to the devils into the details, yeah, there's other factors that play into mental health and emotional regulation. And just talking about your hormone imbalance is just a whole deeper conversation. Yeah.
And stop blaming it on the devil.
And stop blaming it on the devil.
This is what you get when you invite Dr. Holt to the podcast. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know what's gonna come out of that mouth.
Yeah, yeah. Go to your doctor, see your therapist, and I also tell therapists too. If you are dealing with some interventions with a patient or a client, and you see there's a struggle, you yourself as the professional might need to be saying, maybe you need to go do some labs, right? Because
Yes.
yeah, because we giving you talk therapy, we giving you cognitive behavior therapy, we giving you all these different methodologies, but there may be something physiological as well as psychological, and
Ooh.
that's where we need to be looking at person's healing and wellness from a more holistic approach. Yeah,
Where y'all at in the chat box? Do y'all hear this goodness coming through today? So,
yeah, yeah.
talking about, since you talked about the therapist should be looking at the patient, there is a section in my book where I speak to the helpers, and that includes therapists, it
Hmm.
includes doctors, it includes
Yeah.
all the people that are out there serving other people. I find that while we are serving on the front line to help everybody else and tell them to go get labs and tell them what to do, we have spent time polishing our pain, and our trauma is
Yeah.
unresolved because we've not gone and taken care of our business. And so we're burned out.
Hmm.
And I think that plays a part in how well we are tending to the people that are sitting before us.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, very deep, very true. So let me tell you right now, Dr. O, I'm a traumatologist. I'm a brain health specialist. I'm an integrative medicine doctor. I fly 2 or 3 times a month, supporting school districts, foster care, uh, private sector. I got patients as a clinician, um, all of those different things. And I do research as a scientist, all those different things. And yet I know that I can only pour out so much to where I have to invest back into my cup. And so what helps me to stay emotion regulated, because I get tired too. And people get on my last nerve too, just like they get on yours.
What?
Yeah, so I have a therapist. that I sit in his chair, and out of all my knowledge, I don't try to bully his chair. I let him be my clinician. He know who I am. He know what my credentials are. But when I go into his chair, I am the patient. I don't interrupt him. I don't give him my thoughts of what is best methodologies for me. I humble myself. I shut up, and be the patient and listen and take the advice of my therapist. I also have a few doctors. I have a male doctor. Make sure at my age, I look young, but I'm 50 years old now. So
Come on,
um,
50 in the
I
room.
am 50. I hit the 50 on Halloween. Um, and so, but I knew
Seriously.
at certain ages, I need to be doing my health screen. I need to be making sure that I'm okay. I myself, one time, I was like, I feel just horrible. I was traveling back and forth, back to back to back, didn't have no stamina. And my doctor did a lab on my testosterone, and your range should be between 150 to up to 1,000. I was like 200. I was 200. I wasn't even medium. So that played on me being moody. That played on me being quick tempered. That played on me not having the energy that I need. All of those different things, right? So start getting my testosterone therapy. And getting all the way up to optimum levels, and now I feel really, really good. But those are just some things, again, that I'm talking about, that everything is not just mental and emotional. Some things are just physical. Some things that are going on you has a lot to do with your hormonal imbalance. So yeah, so I have a doctor, I have a nurse practitioner, I have a chiropractor because I travel a lot. So I need sometimes my body be aligned. Back again, I have a massage therapist, which I do dip tissue with, just to really relax me, relax my brain and all that. So yeah, so just piggyback on what you're saying, I have to live what I'm telling everybody else to do. I got to live what I preach. So if I'm telling people take care of themselves, stuff like that, doctors are sometimes, we're some of the worst patients. We just pour out, pour out, pour out, and help, 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 but we don't stop to make sure that we are okay. We've had some doctors during COVID commit suicide. I knew there were some therapists that did it. There were some emergency room doctors that did it. There were some nurses that did it. So yeah, so we do have to slow down as professionals and make sure that we are pouring back into our cup, because we're the go-to for everybody. So you also got to have healthy boundaries and say, you know what, I'm not taking this call tonight. I'm not answering that. That can wait till tomorrow. Believe it or not, I also got some healthy boundaries. I don't take my laptop to my bedroom. It doesn't go to my bed. I don't even turn on my TV in my bedroom. Like when I go to my room, it's for relaxation. It's my peace sanctuary and all of that. And I just feel like any emails and any calls for people that need to see a doctor, that can go tomorrow for the next day's agenda. So yeah, so you do got to preserve yourself and make sure you're okay.
That's good because a lot of times people have don't have healthy boundaries and they
Hmm.
work, 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 work. And there
Hmm.
might be seasons, of course, that you have to work a
Yeah,
little harder,
yeah,
but
yeah.
for the average, somebody said, "Happy birthday, half of 100."
Y'all playing, okay.
All
I
right,
got
one of
50,
the
I got 50
listeners
more years to go.
50 more. Go
I'm
figure.
about to hit that 100.
50 more. I don't know. I'm trying to get on up there. My grandmother was 94 and I said, "Now Lord, I'm going to need to at least go on up there where she was." And let me
Yeah,
tell you, Dr. Holt,
yeah.
bad to the bone. I remember she dropped her shoestrings were untied and I said, "Well, let me tie your shoes." She said, "Why do you need to tie my shoes?" Dropped her cane, bent down and tied them shoes. Do you hear me?
What?
At
What?
94. So
Mm,
it's definitely possible. I want to
yeah.
dig into how trauma, shame, and guilt
Wow.
intersect. You said you're tired, but I'm gonna pick that brain tonight.
Oh
How
no, no,
they
I'm good. I'm
how
good.
they
So
intersect. Shame and
yeah,
guilt shows up so strong sometimes that it takes people in a chokehold and they can't seem to move forward out of it.
Yeah, so shame and guilt most definitely is highly associated with people's traumas because um, sometimes you have self blame. You blame yourself for certain things that has happened to you. So that's why I say in my statement, trauma may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal from your traumas. So a lot of stuff is that when we were kids, when we were coming up, we didn't get to choose where we lived. Our parents decided that for us. We didn't get to live. We didn't get to choose our zip code, regardless if it was a gang violence or gun violence infested community, a drugs and substance abuse infested communities. We had to deal with those things. Far as individuals being emotionally abused, physically abused, sexually abused. A lot of that comes from caregivers and family members. And a lot of times, victims blame themselves for those acts that took place on them. And so it's not unheard of and that people who have been through a lot of trauma do blame themselves and have a level of guilt for that happening. Another thing too is that trauma also impacts the frontal lobe in the brain to where you don't make great decisions, right? And so sometimes we make some bad decisions that also help on bringing that shame and guilt on your life because you made a certain choice that brought embarrassment, or you made a certain choice that really put you in a bad situation. Everybody know your business, right? Because of those decision makings that has happened. So, and it is traumatizing to really go through that shame and that guilt. It also makes you dissociative to where you pull away from people. You start showing signs of dissociation. I like to call it the man cave, woman cave syndrome, where you just crawl into that cave and you isolate everybody because of your shame and your guilt. But you have to come to a realization everybody made mistakes. Just because you don't know them doesn't mean people haven't made mistakes. And I used to say this in church, and people used to probably feel some kind of way. I said, old folks used to judge young people about their sins and their mess ups because old folks know most people that know all the skeletons they closet are dead. So so they're dead. So a lot of people that knew you when you was wearing your hot pants and your Daisy Dukes of the
They
40s
gone.
and the 50s. Come on here, y'all.
They
Most of
gone.
these folks is dead. So you don't really have anybody that can leak your business out. but everybody have had seasons, including myself, have not always made best choices. But go back to working on yourself, getting that healing,
Yes.
because healing yourself really helps improve yourself and also increases your value. I'm going to say this too. Certain people in your life only came in your life because your value was so low. Your value was so super low. So you say, how did I get in this toxic relationship? How did I get in this gaslighting relationship? How did I get into this abusive relationship? Because your value was so low. This is another thing about growth. When you start healing and growing, there's absolutely so many people now that will be disqualified to share your future. If you notice, a whole lot of people you hang out with, you date, you kicking it with, and having fun with, is when you are at the worst version of yourself and your value and your self esteem is low. When you start healing, you start building, let me tell you, dating gets harder. It doesn't get harder because you can't find nobody, you can't hook up with nobody. That's not what it is. Is that your value have increased now that more people really have to bring something to the table
That's
in
good.
order for you to have something in the future. So, of course, as you grow and get healed, there's certain people in your phone you would never call ever again. You must go on and delete them now because you're at a different value level in your future that people will not be qualified to share your destiny. This is the last thing I'm gonna say about this. I'm gonna also say is that dating, when you start dating and connecting, you're gonna realize When you take lust and sex out of the game, you're gonna realize how shallow people really are. See,
I
what happens is
talk
we be
about that.
building these soul ties and these sexual emotional attachments with people, and we don't see no red flags. We don't see all of that stuff. But when you take a lot of that stuff out the window and just focus on being intellectually intimate with somebody, being emotionally intimate with somebody on these other levels, you began to really see how shallow men and women really, really are. Takes a special person to be in your
Dr. Holt, what we taking off the table?
life. Man, look, I'm telling you, as you grow, you're gonna realize you have to be more microscopic and
Yes.
let somebody share your space and share your life. Um, the 50-year-old me is so different from the 25-year-old me, right? 25-year-old me, oh, you fine, you cute, you got a nice body. Hey, let's go kick it, let's go have some fun. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We'll figure that thing out. We just young and dumb, right? But when you get to a level of accomplishments, when you get to a level of success, when you get to a level of growth,
Yes.
yeah, that 50-year-old you is way more mature and requires so much more from somebody else that want to share your space versus when you was more immature and younger and 25 some years old. Yeah.
So we're not figuring it out at 50. We're intentionally making sure we're aligned, is what I hear.
Almost definitely. Almost definitely.
The
But
chat
what
box
I am
say, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm just explaining that as we are growing and being a better version of ourselves, our value doubles and triple. So the same Joker that used to have that little game that he could spit to you and you will fall for when you was like 21 and 27 and 31. Man, when you've been through some stuff, when you have actually been through some hell and high water, and when you have been through some heartache and pain, and you have grown and you have healed, you're not gonna let easily somebody come and tear that scab off your healed wound.
Ooh. In the chat box, they saying, yes, 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 you are so right. All of that. What?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
you know what? You talk about the difference between the 21-year-old and the 50-year-old person, generally speaking, not necessarily
yeah,
you.
yeah,
But if the 21-year-old reaches 50, but they don't pause and heal and pour into themselves and
yeah,
grow, they
yeah.
could likely still chase a skirt.
Almost definitely. Yeah, almost definitely. Yeah, obviously I'm speaking in general spaces, but there are special situations where that most definitely can look different, and you can actually be 50 and still be 25 in the brain too. And so we also see that, where we have people that's 45 and they still 17 in the way they make choices. So we also see the
Ooh.
other side of people when they have not healed from their traumas. And this is what we would consider what we call midlife crises, right? People have been through trauma, but now they got some money. They can buy a Ferrari. They can go out and get a Lamborghini and try to relive an old version of themselves that they can never get back, because they haven't healed. So they got to impress. They got to try to buy people and try to manipulate people to be in their space. When you get to a healed version, you ain't doing none of that stuff. Matter of fact, at a healed version, you look at being alone different. See, when you unhealed, you look at being alone as being lonely.
And it's
But when you heal, you see this as a space of self solitude, my
yeah,
peace. This
yeah.
is my peace. I'd rather be alone and have my peace than to be fighting, to be arguing, walking around on eggshells in my own home. All of those different things that as you get a little older and wiser and been through a few things and become a more healed version, that stuff is very, very unattractive. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen some fine as wine women who are toxic, who are gaslighters. They are bitter. They don't know how to connect with a nice, strong man without feeling insecure and all of that stuff, and vice versa. Brothers too. So it go both ways. But the point that I'm pointing out is the more healed you become, the better you're going to be. Your choice is going to be, and you're going to handle circumstances a little different when it comes to your own personal life, your romantic life, your business life, all of those things too. Because as well, you want to be thinking about as you're older, also on your business side, taking care of your business, creating different streams of income, get into a space of financial stability as well, so that when someone come trying to impress you with a few dollars in a car, you ain't impressed because your value is so high. You already got stability, so it's really about what you bring into the table and what you're not going to manipulate me because you got a few things.
Ooh, I see you. I see you, Dr. Deborah, talking about peace. If you have a question for Dr. Holt, tonight
Yes,
is the night to get it into the chat box so you can ask. I'm going to go ahead and throw you a curveball.
sure.
I did a post earlier that talked about family secrecy.
Hmm.
What happens in this house stays in this house. And when you think about both polished pain and trauma, that could really reap havoc
Yeah.
on a child. I want to talk about the child because the child does grow up to be an adult. And a lot of the issues we see in adulthood are related or rooted in our childhood. What do you say about this whole what happens in my house stays in my house or in the house? Because I also think that that's generational.
Absolutely. So that's very dangerous. It's very toxic because a lot of times what we see is individuals who have been abused um, don't get the support that they need because
Mm.
they were told that this act that took place, gonna be embarrassing. It's gonna make mama look bad, gonna make you look bad. So the best thing is to be quiet and don't tell anybody. Well, this is the problem. The problem is number one, you have a higher probability of that child being abused, molested, raped all over again
Hmm.
because there's no guardrails that are in place to protect this child. And then two, you're bringing the victim around the perpetrator in family events. So Thanksgiving can be very, very triggering if Uncle Willie is the perpetrator that comes to Thanksgiving dinners. Know this dude been sneaking in your room and touching you and doing all these kind of different sexual violations. So and then you don't have a space where you can go and share and talk about those things and one expose the guy or expose the person so that it can stop. Because another thing is if you don't deal with it, we got young people that have been constantly sexually abused for long many of years because nobody said anything. um, and teach your kids to always be a tattletale.
Yes.
Teach your kids how to be a tattletale.
Damn
You
it.
teach them how to tell everything. Kids ought to be tattletales. They need
Yes.
to tell when somebody is treating them wrong, someone is mishandling them. And then I will also say, as parents, you also got to use levels of discernment and wisdom. And you got to be teaching your kids some things in the house. Yo, you are too big to be sitting on somebody's lap. You just got to say it. You got to say, honey, listen. Yeah, you growing all of this and you growing all of that? Nah. You can't be coming out the house, coming out of your room without being fully clothed. No, cover yourself, wrap yourself. We
Woo.
got to have those
Yes.
conversations.
Yes.
You got to tell your daughter, you are not, allowed to be sitting in men's lap. I don't care if it is your uncle. I don't care if it is your cousin. You began to set these things up too. My kids cannot spend the night over everybody's house. In order for Dr. Holt's kids to spend all this time, but you are going through an FBI investigation. You are going through a CIA investigation. The Secret Service is going to look into you. Federal marshals. Listen, it ain't even worth my kids coming over because
They
you about
don't
to go
want your
through
kids at their
you
house.
about to go through a probing and a vetting like none other. Listen, you got to protect your babies.
They say Dr. Ho kids can't come here.
No, I can't
Okay.
comprehend.
You know,
Uh-uh.
my mom never allowed me to spend the night at friend's house growing
Yeah,
at my friend's
yeah,
house growing up either. And I also think that sometimes we set our children up to believe that intercourse is the only inappropriate thing.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There are
That's
so many
yeah,
inappropriate things that children that happen to children, and
yeah,
nobody ever says anything about it, or we minimize it, but the
yeah,
child walks away with this pain and this trauma tucked away that only they can carry, because the parent is saying, no, I'm not going to deal with it, in protecting the perpetrator.
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's huge. You're right. So it's not just the or sexual contact,
Yeah,
but you know, inappropriate phrases and talk to kids. Uncle see his niece growing up and he's talking about how big her breast is or how big her butt is, and a girl, you get 18, you're gonna be a bad mama jama, so
inappropriate,
yeah, and it can come off as a joke,
but
right?
it's not.
But but it's not. What that Joker really is trying to do is trying to groom that person. So there's also something that we fail to realize is this sexual grooming that we haven't touched yet. But we're looking at them as they're 9 years old, and we're looking them as they develop at 11 and 13, and they got their eyes on them in a predatory type of way,
Yes,
getting them groomed, to be victimized or to be violated. So we also have to be being very, very cognizant. And this is not just talking about girls. We got men that are molesting boys. So
yes,
we also have to make sure our sons and our nephews are getting the same level of support, because this is what opens the door to that suicide ideation, right? Suicidality. People start thinking about killing themselves. Their self worth gets so low and
yes,
so devalued. So yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. That it doesn't necessarily have to be a full blown sexual intercourse thing. We have people that just would strategically and patiently
wait,
groom people to be a victim in the
yes.
future and already be suggesting in their mind um, not to say anything,
Yes,
So,
that it's
yeah.
okay. And I'm going to add just a snippet to that. So it starts with Uncle Willie saying
Hmm.
how big your butt and your hips and your breast
Right,
are. And
right.
and that also teaches that girl that it's okay for someone to talk to me this way. So
Yeah,
when the man on the block that she passes when she's walking to school says it, she doesn't understand how inappropriate it is, because my uncle, who loves me and mama heard him say it, thought it was okay to say it.
yeah, yeah. I like that, and let me go even further with that. I will also say that that we have to be careful is that as young ladies' brains are developing and growing, as well as their body, but their brain, is that when there's a sexual violation or anything like that, we also have to be careful that it doesn't create a traumatic experience to the point that young ladies start being attracted to their perpetrator,
Ooh,
right? So that trauma bonding, to where you are actually literally looking for the attention. That person been coming at you for many years and playing season. Next thing you know, you're looking for that attention. You're getting satisfied and you're getting aroused sexually from the perpetrator. So yeah, and that's what that danger that grooming is. And this is where we also get young ladies that also don't want to date in an age appropriate relationship. You are 15, right?
Why are you
You
with?
don't even know about which I'm 28, 29-year old, right? What do we and parents are sometimes okay with this stuff, right? So we also got to be careful when we look at that as well.
I have a brother, Dr. Holt, that I admire so much. He has a teenage daughter, and he has arranged his work schedule around her schedule to make sure that he, as her protector, will be
Yeah,
the person to pick her up and drop her off where she needs to be.
yeah, yeah,
Because there
yeah,
are so many opportunities when we don't strategically protect our children, girls
yeah,
and boys,
yeah,
people
yeah,
are waiting
yeah,
to eat
yeah,
them alive. And when that happens, we don't understand the damage that it does to them. And if they don't
yeah.
get the treatment they need, then they become the adult that we're angry at because they are drinking, they are drugging, they are stealing, they are in criminal activity when it all goes back to them not being protected as kids.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also, I think I was speaking to space too. Um, that sometimes things happen where the relationship doesn't work, the marriage doesn't work, and the mother moves on and get to another relationship, have another live-in boyfriend. So you also have to make it clear. Number one, I'm the daddy. I'm gonna tell you right now. Now you can be nice and all this stuff. I'm telling you right now, I'm the father. I take care of this one right here. You know what
I'm
I
the
mean?
papa.
I'm the papa. I'm going to be their protect, and I'm going to teach her that anybody coming at you, you better tell it. You need to talk. You need to tell it because we're also seeing we're living, and I'm not saying all because there's some great stepdads out here doing some amazing jobs raising other people's kids, and I salute them. But you do got perpetrators that will be more attracted to the daughter than the mama that they with.
I've seen it, Doc.
I'm sure you
I've
have.
seen it, Doc.
They ain't even paying attention to mama, looking at the daughter, walking around and this and that. And I'm telling you, so it's a lot of darkness in this world
Yeah,
um, that is going on. But the more that we stay vigilant and the more that we, be protective and don't let people talk you out like something wrong with being protective, over your children. No, you need to be protective. You need to make sure that they're okay. You need to put parameters. No, you can't go over everybody's house. And if you go over everybody's house, who there? Do they got some male cousins, some male bro? You got to be asking these questions if they are over there, just in case something goes down. But no, I'm glad we're having these brave, tough conversations because most definitely you just can't have your kids all over. This is the reason why guardrails is put in us when we were younger about hang out in the street, but when that street light come on, you can swear grandmama was being mean, trying to keep you from fun. Those were guardrails. Those were our
yes,
guardrails
yes,
that we know the freaks come out at night. Grandmama knew that too, right? So she like, boy, girl, you better have yourself on that porch,
yes,
where I can see you. You didn't necessarily have to go in, but you had to be at a place where grandmama can see you and you ain't somewhere where you ain't got no business doing some things you
yes.
ain't got no business doing. So these are the reasons why, we had grandmama and them. Then we had community mothers where that Mrs. Joan across the street seen me acting up. She can grab a belt and tear my tail up too, and there will be no beef between parents. Matter of fact, grandma like, I'm glad you did it. So now he's gonna get a second whooping
I
because
would
he know
get
I taught
on.
him better, right? So we're also going through a societal shift
Yeah.
and we are losing those matriarchs. It's something about when my dear died. It's like the family lose the glue.
Mhm.
Families not even coming together like they used to. You remember the time Thanksgiving? It was about everybody cooked. It was about. I mean, we going to grandma's house for dinner, but everybody cooked at the
Everybody.
house. Everybody has something at home. 4th of July, you will find on one block 10 houses, barbecue grill,
Yeah.
smoking. You
It's
don't even
true.
see these things no more. It's like we're losing our attachments, after the matriarch transition, and we're not doing well to pass the baton over to the next generation to keep the family intact and healthy.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. So many things have changed. And I think the more we change, the more we lose. Some of the things that we changed that we didn't like, they were the guardrails
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kept us. You know, if
That's
mama, I can remember in my house, I would walk out of the room, call myself getting ready to go to Sunday school, and mama would say, "You can go on and change that. You're not wearing." What?
yeah,
What,
you're right
Dr.
on
Holt?
that. Yeah,
Look,
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you a little bit of my business. I remember coming home from, I went to Southern University. And you know,
Okay.
at a HBCU, you go to
Yeah, yeah,
HBCU, you walk, you think you done something.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, I came home and got ready for church. And my mama looked at me and she said, "Where your slip?" It's like,
Sometimes
uh,
stockings, you know, stockings. Yeah, you're right.
ma'am, where my who? I don't wear that anymore. Oh yeah, you
Oh
you
yeah,
you you gonna
yeah,
get the slip up under that dress.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
those things may have seemed like they were being mean or tough, or I can't do like the kids down the block. But let me tell you, it saved me
well, yeah,
from a lot of
yeah,
heartache, from making a lot of wrong decisions and getting myself into a lot of things that I had no business into. And so I think as we have gotten more educated, more degrees, we have more money, I
yeah,
think we lose some of that connection. And I was having a conversation with someone just recently. They were doing their daughter's hair. And it was a black woman, and it seemed like it was nothing. And I told her, I said, I remember how much bonding I would do with my mom when she would do my hair.
yeah,
We
yeah,
talked. It was my time. You know,
yeah,
when she brushed my hair, because my hair was long and thick. And I
yeah.
said, now we have so much money, we don't even do our daughter's hair. We take them
No,
to the beauty shop and drop them
yeah,
off.
that's right. That's right.
But that's an attachment and bonding time
Yeah,
that we don't even get anymore. Or the daughter doesn't want me to do her hair. She wants a weave. And I
yeah,
pay for the weave. But
yeah,
that's an opportunity when I can talk to her and bond and find out what's going on with you that
yeah,
we've now lost. So I do
yeah,
agree with you 100%.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good stuff.
So let's move on. Let's see. Do we have any questions in the chat box? I did see someone tell you earlier, wait until you get 70 and start dating. You ain't gonna look at nothing but the shoes. Well, let's hope. Let's hope we ain't dating at 70.
Oh man, I hope I find some way for them.
I'm
Shoot.
gonna hope so too.
Yeah.
Let's see where we are. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Let's talk about the mask of strength and how that has caused a shift. I think sometimes the mask of strength, of course, is covering, polishing pain, polishing
Hmm.
trauma, covering it
Hmm.
up. But I think it's also impacted our dynamics and our relationships and how we see the other sex, the opposite sex, in the position we allow people to play in our lives. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So masking, our strengths, and uh, I think you allow yourself to be vulnerable. I think that being vulnerable sometimes makes people feel that they don't want people to see. Um, that they don't always have the answers, that they don't always have it together. I've done some things in my past, even to this day, like you may not be proud of. And so we mask those things thinking that people want perfection. And when you mask it to appear to always be perfect and pristine, you're disqualified to meet another flawed person because we're all flawed. Our flaws just look different.
Yes.
And it's okay to be transparent, when we are connecting with people about, my flaws and, my struggles that I continue to have. It's just human. You're just human, and even though that yes, we are healing, even though, yes, we want to be a better version of ourselves, but there's still things to work on a daily basis, even though that you constantly got to work on your attitude. You can't just be flipping off on everybody. You can't constantly be slick mouth and getting smart with folks and thinking that's okay. Like people gonna deal with you, So it's important that we do some deep dives and some self reflection and begin to really look at you know who you really are and take that mask off. You look really,
Mm.
really beautiful as just being who you are. Really, the mask is just, you portraying a certain level of you that most times really doesn't exist. It's almost like a personality disorder. You get to actually get to hide and be something else in a different personality instead of actually really being yourself. Now the danger is this is what this personality disorder becomes a disorder is when you have played under the mask so long, you began to not know the difference between the mask and the real you. So it's easier now for you to live in that personality instead of you really being who you really are. So when we start talking about this mask thing, is really, really important. If you keep living under that mask and pretending, it's very easy for you to start thinking it's comfortable to live in this area of a personality, but that's not really who you really are, and you can actually lose yourself. And when you lose yourself, you also find yourself tied up and tangled up in certain partnerships, friendships, and relationships because you lost yourself. When they met you, you was under a mask. And so now you 90 days into a situation and people like, well, who is this coming out? Who is this person? Where this person been, right? Because you was under a mask going to Red Lobster. You was wearing this mask, kicking it, going to the movies. You've been wearing this mask, hanging out, doing picnics, and then finally, bam! When you get comfortable, the real you comes out, and people can't handle it. So it's really important that it's strength to take off the mask
Come on with
because
it.
it's strength to be who you really are, and that also may mean that you might need some time of being alone to really deal with yourself and grow, and that's okay, so that you don't have to have a codependency on a mask. People don't want to date a mascot; they want to date you, and you've been this bunny for the last 90 days. You've been this big brown bear walking around in this mascot suit. You've been looking like Chuck E. Cheese for 90 days, and now people like, who is this real person? Well, you've been in that suit all this time, right?
Take
So
the
it's time
suit
for you,
off.
yeah, take that suit off, take your mask off, and be you.
I was sold a commercial before, Dr. Holt. They wore the
Yeah,
suit. And when the suit came off, I ran.
yeah, I know that's right.
All right, this is the last one. If you got a question for Dr. Holt, this is it. This
And
is it.
I really
Okay.
hope I'm helping somebody. I really hope that
They
I'm.
are cutting up. They are cutting
Okay.
up. Matter of fact, one of the listeners said, "Talking about yes, Lord," said your transparency helps others. Another one talking about, ooh, we.
Take
Yes.
that Chuck E. Cheese suit off.
Yes. Be yourself. They will
Be you.
adjust. That is so true. So we see all the time people surviving.
Hmm.
And so survival is over here. And we're constantly saying, stop surviving and heal.
Yeah.
What is the big difference from the seat where you sit in surviving and healing?
Um. Yeah. So I created the framework called trauma resilient wellness, which means that that's way more than trauma informed care. So everywhere I've been going, I've been talking about there was something missing when I'm traveling and training, and everybody was stuck on the trauma informed. And the trauma informed is really, it is important. It is important. If you have not been trained in trauma, things like that, the first level of knowledge would be trauma informed care, and that is to discuss the neuroscience and the neurobiological impacts that trauma plays on the victim. That's great. But in today's society, you need much more than that now. So that's why I came up with trauma resiliency. And the reason why I'm speaking in this space is because people always ask me, so what is it? What is the thing about trauma resilient wellness? Well, it is helping trauma survivors to move from surviving to actually thriving.
Wow.
And that thriving piece has everything to do with the healing process. So survival is you just making it. I'm just making it in. I just trying to hang on in there. And that's fine in certain aspects because to survive some of your worst traumatic experiences is huge. But just surviving is not enough. We got to get you to another level of healing that shift you from surviving to actually thriving. And how do I get to that thriving? Actually going through that process of healing. Number one, I always got people say, well, what does this look like? Number one, you have to have acknowledgement you have a problem. Because no matter how great the doctor or the therapist is, if you don't have acknowledgement that you have a problem, then we're wasting time. Two, you got to come out of denial. You got to quit blaming not having your dad in your life. You got to quit blaming that your mama had favoritism over your older sister. I mean, I can go all over and over and over. I'm speaking into these spaces, right? You got to get over it and come out of denial and say all of this stuff I've been through may not be my fault, but I'm ready and I'm going to take acknowledgement to heal so I can be the best version of myself. Okay. And then three, you need to get you someone that can help you. Get you a licensed professional. Get you someone that knows what they're doing, and someone who's informed with trauma as well. Then the next, you got to have a support network. That may be your church, that may be your family, that may be a group sessions, a group that whatever they look like. You need that as well. So all of these things are going to be really, really important as we're talking about surviving to healing, surviving to actually thriving.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put, and the last thing I say is, I don't care how bad you want it. I cannot want your healing more than you want it for yourself.
That's good.
That cannot happen. You must put in that work. I'm gonna say
Yes.
it again. You must put in that work. As a matter of fact, you should want this so bad that you show up to your therapist's office before she get there. That's how bad you need to want it. Your car need to be sitting right there waiting. So you got to want it as much as you need to breathe. That's how bad that you got to want it.
That's good. I had a call earlier today with a relationship coach
Hmm.
about a conference workshop. And we were talking about her niche and what she does and how she reaches women. And she said to me, I asked her, I said, well, you're teaching women how to get a mate. I said, but the workshop you want me to do is about them healing. And she said, yeah, I had to coin it that way because when I talked about them healing, they were not interested.
Wow.
And that really broke my heart because that means wanting an exterior connection is more important than you dealing with the internal related to yourself. Um, Other people or having a relationship outside of self should never be a priority over loving yourself and connecting with yourself and healing yourself. That should
Yeah.
always be number one.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree, and we said it a lot, and sometimes that is a normal process. So you have to force yourself to go through a season of singleness so that you can heal from your traumas or from a bad relationship, a toxic marriage, all of that. But what it is that our brains are seeking a dopamine oxytocin release, that happy pleasure chemical, and we want to fill that space with our void,
Quick,
instead of actually, yeah, quick, instead of
quick.
actually healing. Yeah. So a relationship can be just as addictive as cocaine. So you really have to make sure that you are focusing on your inner self, because there is something called relationship addicts.
Yes, and we don't want that. Dr. Holt, I'm so glad you dropped in tonight
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. It
hung
was
out
great.
with us. I appreciate you always.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
all kinds of things are happening in between now and my season number two. I'm sure
yeah,
this won't be the last time we connect.
And you got to
But
come on my show too, because we launched the Unbreakable show with Dr. Hope. So yeah, so I'm planning 2025 that have you go to be a guest on the Unbreakable show as well.
all
So
right, so tell them where they can find the Unbreakable show with Dr. Holt at, because
all
it is
right, so
now
yes.
alive.
Yeah, so come on to us at YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. So it's a it the link is at the Unbreakable Show, at the Unbreakable Show on YouTube. So if you type in the symbol at the Unbreakable Show, you'll be able to get us. So we're just logging, putting on a few episodes, getting started. So we just got started, so we're excited about it. We also be on Apple. We also be on Spotify as well. But yeah, so we're excited. So be a subscriber. So I'm asking for some subscribers. So join us, man. We're looking for a good time, and we're gonna be talking about these tough issues on trauma, mental illness, and things like that. So yeah, so I do already have in my mind as we get through the holidays in 2025, have you to come on and be our special guest as well. So.
All right, I'll come on down, come on over, jump on around the corner.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
awesome. I did put it in the chat. I will post it again to make sure you all have it. Go over there and check out Dr. Holt on at the Unbreakable Show on YouTube. The @ the Unbreakable Show with
Yes.
Dr. Holt. Thank you again, Doc. For
Yeah.
everybody else, this is the last episode of season 1. And so keep your ears and eyes open because we're preparing for all kinds of great news as we head into season 2. My book drops Tuesday, the 19th of November, which is Polished Pain: The Cost of Burnout and Unresolved Trauma. So if
Mm.
you do not follow me on all social media platforms, please go ahead and look me up at Lynda Carmouche on all social media platforms. And Dr. Hope, they can find you at, is it Dr. Damond or at Damond
As far as what?
on social media platforms?
On social media, I just say put in my first and last name and I pop up. You can find me on TikTok, Dr. Ho, the Trauma Doctor, on TikTok. So you put that in there, you'll be able to find me on TikTok as well. So yeah, so we're excited, man. We're excited to get this workout. So it's gonna be great.
All right, so I put that information in the chat box. Thank you, listeners, for
All right,
everything
thank
that
you
you
guys.
have done. We appreciate you. Until next time, be
Yes.
well.
All right, take care.